Good afternoon, everybody. I think we're about ready to start now. There are some people still tuning in, so we have a little bit of an introduction to run through before we start the webinar in full. But I'd just like to welcome you to this first Alcon Experience Academy webinar. Sorry, just with some more people coming through. Settling down now. Okay, so hi and good afternoon. Thank you very much for joining this webinar, but before we actually sort of start into the full body of this afternoon, I just really want to go through some of the areas that we can interact on through this session. You've all been muted, that's the system, and it's just really just to reduce any interference and unexpected noise coming from the background. You will possibly be quite reassured as well to know that we haven't got cameras on you. They are disabled, but the cameras are obviously activated for both myself as your host and for our keynote speaker, Daniel Owens. We are encouraging also for you to give some questions from the session, and we have the Q&A button which should appear on your right, or it might be enclosed within the More Options button, which should be to the bottom of your screen. So please do put your questions as we go through the session, which I will then put to Dan as we come towards the end of the presentation. Depending on how many there are, I may not be able to cover them all, but any that we don't cover, we will obviously answer and make available to you following on from today. We are also, for your information, recording this session, and we will make that available through our YouTube channel so that you can revisit it to look at any of the content, but also for those obviously who aren't able to join us and access it this afternoon. So here we are, we're in very different times. At Alcon, we've been working very hard, the whole professional affairs team, to actually get our sessions migrated into online options, our sessions and our material, and ways in which we can support you as practitioners. As from tomorrow, we'll have web-based peer discussions available, which you can register for by emailing the email address which you see on screen. If you can indicate which sessions from that you wish to attend, and we will send you a link which then starts the process off for you to register for those sessions. We'll be upping those and making different ones available as we go through these next few months. We also have another webinar upcoming on the 21st of May. We'll be exploring wellbeing and mindfulness with optometrist and wellbeing specialist Tina Shah. Again, you can indicate if you wish to come on that by registering the same way as you did for this session through the Alcon Professional Affairs website. We're also very happy to be in a situation where we can make slit lamp breath shields available to any practice that is currently seeing emergency appointments. We are limiting this to one per practice at the moment to ensure that we can fulfill all requests. And as things settle down, we will have more available. But at this time, it's just one per practice. Again, if you would like one of these, please email the Alcon Professional Affairs email address with your name and practice details and account number, and we're very happy to arrange to have one of those sent to you. So on to the actual session, and it's my absolute pleasure to be able to introduce Daniel Owens. Dan is a former journalist and now director of award-winning PR and social media agency, Orange Juice PR, who specialises in healthcare. We have worked with him previously and on a very well-received series of workshops where we delivered these across the UK, looking at how independent practices owners can use social medias to boost their business. And this webinar will revisit some of those items, but at the same time adapting the message and the tone of voice really to reflect the current situation we're in with Covid-19, and really to ensure that you currently continue to engage with your patients. So as I mentioned, please don't forget to submit your questions as we go through. I'll just start to pass over to Dan, and we will start then the webinar in full. So thank you very much. Speak to you later. Bear with us while we just pass over to Dan. Over to you, Dan.
Thanks, Neil, and thanks to everyone for joining me this afternoon for this session, looking at how you guys as eye care professionals can use social media to help you and your practice through these very challenging times that we're all living through right now at the peak of the COVID-19 global pandemic. This webinar is being held as part of the Alcon Partnership Programme. As Neil mentioned, I work for a company called Orange Juice Communications. We're an agency that specialises in PR and social media. We work predominantly within the healthcare industry, in particular diabetes and optometry. We staged a series of social media workshops back in 2018 for Alcon, and it's a natural follow-up to those, really, just to update it to reflect the times that we're living in now. For those of you that don't know me, I'm originally a journalist by trade. But I've been working within social media in some form or other for around 10 years now. And I've really seen the benefits it can bring to businesses, particularly in terms of building relationships with customers and engaging with them on a daily basis. So this afternoon, I want to talk about social media and digital marketing, explain a bit more about what it is, how it works, and how we should be using it right now to talk to our patients as we live through lockdown. I also want to get you thinking about your long-term strategy for social media and how you can use it in a post-COVID-19 world as we sort of emerge from the current situation. Naturally, all of you are going to have different levels of experience with social media. Hopefully by the end of the webinar, everyone's going to have 2 or 3 little ideas they can take away and put to use straight away, whether it's something that you've used extensively over the years or whether you're actually quite new to some of these platforms. One of the things I really want to focus on is the tone of voice that we use. That's arguably never been more important when it comes to your social messaging than right now. It's imperative we get that right. So we're going to look at that in some detail as well. So social media, what is it? Well, we don't have a choice on whether we do social media. The question is how well we do it. I don't think that quote has ever been more relevant, to be honest. When coronavirus hit and practices had to close, the easy thing to do would be to shut down your social and hide away from it, bury the head in the sand. I'm adamant that's totally the wrong strategy. And at times like this, I think it's more important than ever to talk to patients, to inform them of what you're still able to do, and to reassure them that we are still there for them throughout this outbreak. I think those who embrace social are going to come out of this far better than those who ignore it. So why do we need to use social now? Well, we need to talk to our customers. And if we're not seeing them in person, then social is a great way that we can talk directly to them. Back in the old days, you might want to take out advertising in local publications, etc., to say that you're still open, doing this and that. That's not going to work these days. Social media is the way that we communicate. It's a lot faster, it's immediate, and it's a lot more targeted than old media as well. Previously, you know, it's hit and hope with old media advertising. You don't know who's going to be seeing that advert. Whereas with social media, you know your audience, you know that they're going to see that advert, and you can get instantaneous results as well. Using social now is a chance to reassure people and provide them with the information that they need. So that's opening hours, that's the message about what you can do in times of emergency, and also give aftercare tips as well. If they're not going to be able to come into the practice, then why not give them the information that you might give them in that scenario? So if someone breaks their glasses, why not do a little how-to video on how to quickly put a quick fix on a pair of broken glasses, or maybe how to clean your contact lens video. Good, useful information that they can revisit throughout this whole process. It's obviously a great way of increasing brand awareness as well. Lots of community stories going on right now. People are sharing those feel-good stories around Facebook. Let's get in there, let's get amongst it. Let's be part of that story and get your logo, your brand, everything about you, get it out there in front of people through social media. And as ever, social media is a fantastic way of positioning yourself as an expert in your field. Nobody around you knows more about your profession than you. So it's a chance to shout from the rooftops about your experience, about what you can do to help people. And most importantly of all, it's free. There's not a lot free these days. So when you get something such as social media that is free at point of entry, then why not take advantage of that? These are the main social media platforms that we all come to know and love. I would imagine most of us on here today have got at least one or two of these. We've got Facebook, where things can go viral very, very quickly. Shareable content is huge on there. You can get some huge numbers. Twitter, wonderful for news updates, speaking directly to people, particularly journalists in the PR world as well. Instagram, optometry is a very picture-led industry. You can use it for high fashion glasses, sunglasses, that kind of thing. And it's a real chance to be creative as well and explore that side of your business. Powered by hashtags as well. We'll revisit that later. YouTube, I think that's something that you could perhaps harness right now to do these kind of how-to videos that we mentioned. LinkedIn is that personal platform where you can engage with other members of the profession and show your industry experience. Then there's a whole host of others like Snapchat, TikTok, these kind of things that are emerging platforms and very popular with young people. But is there a place on there for independent optometrists? That's something we can talk about in due course. So things to consider about your current use of social media. What platforms do you currently use? I would imagine most of you probably have a Facebook page. A fair chance most of you will have Instagram these days as well. Some of you will have Twitter. Have a look at what you use. Think about why you're using them. Also think about how often you post. Is that daily? Is that weekly? Is it monthly? But also think about when you post. And that's changing right now. Previously, there used to be 3 distinct periods in a day when posts would get seen the most. And that's typically when you wake up in the morning. So many people wake up, turn their phone on, scroll through social. Then it was lunchtime. And then it was on the journey home from work on a commute and in the evening. That's changing. The last month or so, I've seen a lot of stats which show that social media use is almost similar throughout the entire day. There aren't these peaks and troughs. It's a steady flow now. So why are we using social media? And who is responsible for it in our practice? Is this a chance for you to perhaps engage somebody else in your practice to take a look at some other platforms? One of the things that people say, oh, we'd love to do more social media, but we just don't have the time. Well, perhaps now you do have the time, and perhaps someone can invest a little bit of time in perhaps setting up an Instagram feed, perhaps setting up a Twitter account. Use it and experiment with it. Think about who we're talking to with our target audience. And again, think about our tone. Do we need to change that right now for the coronavirus outbreak? I think we probably do. I think we need to come across as maybe a very sensitive, kind of caring role or giving, but also be reassuring to people. People are seeing a lot of bad news on the television day in, day out. They've had their fill of that. They want to see a little bit of positivity and light come into their lives. So how can we use social media even more effectively? Well, we need to create the content that's going to prove popular with our audience. These are things that they want to see, not just what you want to say. Remember, all times you're talking to your audience, you're not talking for yourself. And that kind of follows on with this idea of telling stories rather than selling. But please try and be real at all times. They're the posts that other people end up sharing on their profiles. It's not the corporate message, it's the story behind it, it's the people. So really try to focus in on that. And I think you'll see good results in terms of reach and engagement levels. I don't know if anyone's aware of the 80-20 rule. Now, this suggests that only 20% of your messaging should be sales messaging, whereas the other 80% should be real life stories, etc. I think that's a good mantra to live by. At all times, try and stay sensitive. As we say, these are interesting times. People are living through something that they've never experienced before. They're nervous, they're apprehensive. Understand that and use appropriate language that will reassure people, exude confidence and calm in them as well. There's a very useful blog here on that link on the WordStream blog, which tells us all about marketing during this time. So have a look at that. There's some useful information on that. So Facebook, we know it's the biggest platform out there with the biggest audience. How do we use it? Well, Facebook is extremely popular with everyone about 30 and over. Of that age group, they've grown up with Facebook. They've never known anything else. And there's a huge, huge audience out there. The numbers are eye-watering, and it makes perfect sense to be on there. The way Facebook works is using an algorithm called EdgeRank. And this basically favors videos and photos. So posts containing those two things will work better than posts that don't include them. So try to bear that in mind and include as many photos and images and videos in your posts as you possibly can. The aim with Facebook is to get as many likes, comments, and shares as possible. If you do that, then your posts will perform better. And the way that it works is that the more people like and comment on your posts, the more likely they are to see future content from yourself. Success breeds success, and they come back time and time again because they see your posts more often. That's particularly relevant right now. We're seeing statistics are showing that with everyone working from home, people are seeing more posts, they're liking more posts, they're commenting on more posts. That results in more traffic to your Facebook page. Typically, I'm seeing pages which would normally get maybe 10 to 12 likes on a photo. That's now in the 70s, 80s, 90s. If it's the right kind of post, which we're talking about, that kind of reassuring message, the confidence, the calmness, the doing a bit of good in the community, those kind of posts are proving extremely popular right now. And if you want to see how your posts are performing, there's a section on Facebook called Page Insights, which allows you to get as many analytics as you could possibly imagine. And it's a really useful tool. So let's try and have a look at Page Insights when you get onto your Facebook page. This is a typical Facebook page, which I'm sure most of you will recognize. I've used the BCLA page here just as an example. When you go into Facebook and try to start a post, this is what you're greeted with. I won't spend too long on this, as I'm sure most of you know how to use Facebook by now, but you write your post in here. You can make a little coloured background if it's a short post. You can add photos and videos. You can check in, that kind of thing. You can also set up events if you've got a particular exhibition or something like that going on. Obviously, we won't at the moment, but that's something to consider, actually, that if you have had to cancel real life events, could you make them into a virtual event? And you can do that by clicking on this live button, and that shares live video where you can talk directly to your audience, which is something worth considering. If there's any questions on anything to do with how to navigate Facebook and that, just pop them in the Q&A section, and we can try and revisit it during one of the questions sections. So what do we need to post on Facebook during lockdown? Well, I think people want information, and they want to be told exactly what you can do to help them. So there's a chance to update your opening hours, for example. As soon as you log on to Facebook these days, as a business, you get an option to update your opening hours. It's that easy. They understand that's a big thing for you. So click on that button and you can update your opening hours to reflect your new times. Try and, if you are open for emergencies only, if you're doing certain practices, then say that on Facebook as well. Just let people know what you can do. I think there's an option for everybody just to think that you're closed. A lot of you won't be. A lot of you will still be offering a service. So shout about Facebook, and people will enjoy reading that, and they will feel reassured by it. They may well share it with others. Obviously, we want to get our Facebook pages as interactive as possible. That is key to the algorithm. So let's have a look at things like competitions, things like polls. And if you're confident, let's try a live Q&A. One thing is, if you've always been put off of doing these live things before, now's probably the time to do it. I've found that people are a lot more receptive to this idea and a lot more forgiving. And if it comes across as a little bit amateurish, a bit bumbling, don't worry about it. Just keep going. People appreciate the effort that you're going to give them new content and different ideas. We're all going through this together. We're all learning as we go along. And I think as long as you can be honest and genuine in your attempts to inform them, then that's going to stand you in good stead. As mentioned earlier, there's so many community issues going on right now. Maybe you've got a shortage of PPE in your local hospital, or maybe there's a real hotbed of coronavirus which is affecting people in your community that you know of. Let's get involved with those stories and see how we can help. Again, that's the way to getting a lot of interaction on your pages. I always say with Facebook, try and go behind the scenes. Give people that added value that they don't necessarily have unless they're on your Facebook page. That gives them a reason to like you and follow you on Facebook. Always try to show the personality of the team as well. It's a great way of getting to know people and they get to know you as people rather than professionals as well, which I think breaks down some barriers and makes them a lot more comfortable when they're in your chair for their appointments. So show how the team are spending lockdown, show the differences they're having from working from home, but always just be mindful of the tone that we're trying to convey here. Let's not be too silly, but also let's have a little bit of fun as well. You know, it's a very serious situation out there. We need lightening up now and again. So just try and show a little bit of fun in what people are doing. I just want to share with you some examples of posts on Facebook which have proven to be successful in the past month or so. Now, I should give the disclaimer here that I do some work for TKNS optometrists here in Northampton. They are my optometrists as well. So the reason I've shown these is because I know the reasoning behind why they were used, and also I can share the data with you. Now, the first one is a video, which I'm playing now. Now, there is a soundtrack to this, which I don't believe you can hear because there is some issues with the webinar software. But this was put together actually by Brian Tompkins himself from TKNS. I didn't actually produce this personally, but this was put together just to give a reassurance message to everyone associated with the practice, to all customers and friends of practice, just to say what they are doing, that they're there for you, and they will be doing all they can to help throughout lockdown period. It's worth pointing out that there is a soundtrack, as I mentioned. If you are using music at any point during your social media videos, just bear in mind the tone that it needs to be. This is a nervy time for everybody, as we've mentioned. We don't want anything too upbeat. We don't want anything too somber either. We just got to strike the right balance. Lots of these programs do have inbuilt music software that you can just pick a track. So spend some time making sure that you do pick the right one. And now Brian used a program called Doodly to produce this. I think he paid about 40 quid for it, and it's a very useful piece of software, which is extremely easy to use, and you can put together some quite nice little pieces on this. I think this took him an hour or so, and it's just a nice way of being able to reach out to patients, explain what we're doing, how we're doing it, and why we're doing it as well, and that we're always there for them throughout. That was Brian's video, and we've done a series of posts over the last month just to explain how TKNS are still working as a business, and that involves some PR as well as social media, and this is an example of how the two combine. So right at the start of lockdown, there was a patient who woke up one morning with horrific eye pain, and she contacted TKNS through Facebook about 7:30 in the morning, and Kaya Patel, who's the optometrist you can see on your screen now, messaged her straight back and diagnosed some symptoms, etc., over the phone, and booked her straight in for an emergency appointment that morning. The patient went into practice, and Kaya treated her, and he undoubtedly saved her a trip to the hospital. She had quite a nasty infection, which he was able to treat there and then. So we shared the story. Originally we did a Facebook post about it, and then we did a full press release, which we shared with local media. The Northampton Chronicle and Echo, which is the paper here in Northampton, they picked that up and they published it on their Facebook page, which was a great result for us. They've got about 90,000 Facebook likes, so we get a lot of traction from that. We shared that link, and you can see that straight away it reached 975 people, which is a good number for the TKNS page. Far more than usual, and it got 380 engagements, which was a terrific return on that piece, including 94, I think, likes and loves. You can see these figures here, and again, this is all through Facebook Insights, which you can access through your main page. So that worked particularly well. Then we wanted to show what we're still doing out and about in the community. And I'm sure many of you know Brian Tompkins. He's not afraid of a picture, loves a selfie. And here he is out on his bike, pounding the streets of Northamptonshire and delivering contact lens solutions, any eye care supply that you can think of. He was out there delivering it to doorsteps. So that was a nice way for us to say we're still here for you. We're not going to let them beat us on this. TKNS will survive you. We will give you all the treatments you need. Again, 707 reached, 54 reactions, comments and shares, which was a really good result. Again, because we're getting these high numbers, people are seeing more of our future posts. So the more of these kind of posts you can do, the more people then see perhaps the more salesy messages that you might put on in due course. Now, the previous story with Kaya mentioned the fact that it had eased the strain on the NHS, and about a week later, that became the real story in town, the strain on the NHS. So we wanted to revisit that original story and just explain a bit more about how we made that impact. And that's because Kaya is an independent prescribing optometrist, so we explained a bit more about that. And you'll see that we've got a reach of 2,000, which was a really high number for TKNS. 495 engagements in total. So people are very, very interested in this kind of thing right now, and people appreciate the difference that you're making out there. So let's share it with them. Now, one of the best kept secrets on Facebook is Facebook for Business resources. If you haven't explored this section, then I would urge you to do so. If you're looking for tips on how to use Facebook as a business, there's not many better places to go for advice than Facebook itself. Its help and resources sections are some of the best around. I'd urge you all to have a look. It's a mine of useful information. Some great advice on here about how to host live events, update your opening hours, automate responses to messages in your inbox, etc. So take a few minutes to have a look. The link is on there, and I think we can share these slides afterwards if you do miss any of these links. I think it's also, because it's been recorded, it's going on YouTube as well, so you can get it from there. And hidden away on here is this page, which I'm quite excited about. It's not just the government handing out grants to businesses. Facebook is too. We don't know how much or when at the moment, but there is going to be money available. $100 million to 30,000 businesses around the world. It launched in the States, in 3 states, I think, on Tuesday. So this is very, very new. And I'm literally found out about it this week, as you can see. But it will be available in the UK. I checked it out, and it is coming to the UK. You can register your interest now as a business. You just if you click on this link here, that takes you through, you get some more information, see available locations. The UK is listed on there. So I would say it's well worth registering. It may well be that the money is in the form of some kind of advertising credit rather than cold hard cash, but it's certainly worth a look. And a free Facebook advert is worth having. Anything free is worth expressing an interest for. So again, have a look at that, get in ahead of the queue. I don't think many people know about this. So I think the earlier you can register your interest, the more chance you have of getting something back from Facebook. Okay, before we go on to Twitter, I just want to see if there are any questions about anything we've talked about on Facebook so far. So if we'll just bring Neil back in. If you have any questions.
Dan, there's been a few questions posted. A few people have asked, what's the name, please, of the video app that was used?
The TKNS video we're talking about, that was called Doodly, DOODLY. I believe that is available for all sorts of computers. I know Brian used a Mac to do it, but I believe it's on all platforms, so you should be able to get that. It's heavily advertised on Facebook, actually. They do a lot of Facebook advertising, so you'll probably find it through there.
Very good, thank you. And another one, I'm not sure if we'll be able to actually do this live, but maybe we could talk through it. Can we do a step-by-step of the sort of the posting, including sort of photos, asking them to comment and share? I guess that's about having maximum effect from those kind of things.
Okay, so can I just, if I go back a few slides, bear with me while I skip through. So if we go to that page, what's the question? So it's
step by step of posting, including uploading photo. Do we ask them to comment, like, and share? It's possibly something about the attitudes towards it, perhaps. Yeah.
No problem at all. So when you open up the window, you can write your text in here. If it's a short post with no image, to make it stand out a little bit more, I would recommend clicking on this little button here, and you can decide on a coloured background for your post. It just makes it stand out just that little bit more, particularly when you're scrolling through Facebook on your phone. You need to be able to give people content their thumb stops on, it stands out. So try and make it as colourful as possible. If you've got a photo or a video to go with your post, then that's great, because that's what we want to be seeing on Facebook. And you just add that by clicking this button. That then brings up the option to upload a photo from your computer or your phone, etc. So you can just add in your photo and video at that point. Now, I think the question mentioned, should we ask people to like, comment and share? It's a little bit old-fashioned, that, I would say. Certainly that's what people used to do, and there is a place for it on certain posts, but personally I think it comes across as a little bit needy and a bit grabby. I prefer to do things perhaps a bit more organically. I think if the content is good enough, then people will share it and like it anyway. The commenting thing is slightly different. I think if you are looking actively for comments, then I would put something in. So I did a post this morning, for example, where I was looking to get stories in from, it was a BCLA post actually, about asking BCLA members to share what they've been doing throughout coronavirus. And I specifically said at the bottom of the post, please comment with your stories in the comment section below, just to direct people, just to make it obvious that that's where I want them to comment within Facebook rather than emailing us, for example. So I think, yes, I'd say if you want people to comment, say it out, spell that out for them. If it's liking and sharing, probably not. And also, if we're running a competition, this is worth mentioning, any competitions which are judged on where you need to like and share, for example, to enter, Facebook doesn't allow that anymore. It has the potential to blacklist your page if you do like and share competitions. It doesn't want that. It's encouraging you to be far more organic with your posting. Hopefully that explains that. Are there any follow-ups to that?
We can move on and answer the rest of the questions at the end of the session, Dan. Thank you.
That's great. Okay. So let's move on to Twitter, which is probably my platform of choice, if I'm being honest. But that's as a former journalist, we used to live on Twitter, and I'm sure most of them still do. I was a very early adopter of it. I've been using it for pretty much ever since it started. I use it day in, day out. But I appreciate it's perhaps not as mainstream as Facebook or Instagram for your patients. So we won't spend a huge amount of time on it, but I just think it's worth visiting. As I might say, it's loved by the media, Twitter. The character limit used to be 140, and they've upped it to 280. All I'd say on that is just because you can use 280 characters doesn't mean you should. It's all about brevity of message on Twitter. Be really clear, be nice and concise, and use those characters wisely. We just mentioned about thumb stopping content in relation to Facebook, and that's even more true on Twitter, I think. So nice bright pictures, good imagery, ways of making your content stand out. It could be a little emoji or something like that, or a GIF, and those little moving images. Twitter has a GIF library which you can suggest content for yourselves as well. Again, with Twitter, we want to make posts shareable. We want to amplify the reach of our posts and get as many people retweeting as possible. It has gone down. Interactivity on Twitter is not as strong as it was, and engagement levels are not great. There's been a bit of a dip in the last 18 months. More people are perhaps moving away from the platform, but if you get it right, it can still go extremely well for you. Twitter also allows you to tag particular accounts, so that's a very effective way of increasing reach. If you've got a product or something, you can tag in the manufacturer, and there's every chance they'll retweet, and they'll have a nice big audience for you as well. Now, how to use Twitter, again, briefly, this is your main screen on here. So this is where you type your post. I've got this window. So you can type in your message here. Briefly, you can add emojis by clicking on that and then selecting which emoji you want to use. You can add a picture or a video by selecting this button here, and that goes straight into your camera roll. You can select a GIF on this button here. There's an extensive library. You can always find a GIF to suit what you're talking. Sorry, just going to skip forward. The button next to that is a poll button, so you can ask up to a question with 4 different answers on there, which can last up to 7 days. You'll see on the right-hand side of the homepage trending topics as well. It's worth keeping an eye on that and feeding into those. These are the topics that are popular right now in the UK, wherever you're using Twitter. So if you can join in those conversations as well. We'll come back to this screen if there are any questions on Twitter. So what should we post on there? Well, I think there's a lot of industry news and discussion on there. It's always a chance to show off your knowledge and your level of expertise. Quote tweeting is something that's worth bearing in mind as well. Not just retweeting, you can, I'll just scroll back actually, the retweet button is here. So if you wanted to retweet this story about Boris, you just click on that and it will appear on your timeline. However, it also gives you the option to quote tweet. You can put a line, your own spin on that story as a piece of text above it. So that's a good thing to do, perhaps on local news stories or industry news stories which you think are relevant and you have an opinion on. We mentioned about feeding into those trending topics, always a good move, and GIFs really make your posts stand out as well as emojis. If you've got local influencers and bloggers, worth getting in touch with them, seeing if they can help you out in any way. They have huge audiences, some of these people. Always worth a look. Celebrity clients, that kind of thing. One thing to bear in mind with Twitter, which not a lot of people do, and certainly not enough make use of, is tagging accounts in photos. So when you do add a photo to a tweet, you can actually add 10 different accounts to that photo, which is a great way of making sure that people see it. I can guide you through that again if anybody doesn't know how to do that. These are some examples I've seen of some quite good tweets. In recent weeks, we've got Specs Lady Faye on the left-hand side here, who is worth a follow on Twitter. She does some really good content. This, again, just shows what she's been doing to help customers in the last few weeks. So she's picked up a child's broken pair of glasses, delivered to somewhere in Kent, then went on a webinar, and just shows that she's active. You know, that her practice is not closed; it's still very much ongoing, and work is being done. With the Chalmers Opticians post, again, that's an example of this "We're here for you" message, which is working really well at the moment. People like seeing that kind of message. You get a lot of traction from just showing that you're thinking of people. And as we mentioned earlier, we need a little bit of humour. Let's be honest. It's been some dark old times here. And personally, I love this tweet from Robson Opticians in Newcastle. I think this is something we can all relate to. You know, we're still here, we're still working, and we're eating reheated soup out of margarine tubs. Interesting times. Again, just puts a smile on your face. I have no problem with humour being used, particularly on Twitter. Just bear in mind that it's worth a second read. Just make sure it's the right kind of humour before you do it. Just be careful. Just remember that you don't want to be upsetting people at what is now a particularly sensitive time. Okay, quickly on Instagram, which I know a lot of people in the eye care world use and use well. It's a very picture-led platform. Obviously, you can't post without a photo. And it's very useful for this kind of aspirational lifestyle. High quality imagery is key. Hashtags are very, very important on Instagram. The guidelines say that you should use up to 12 hashtags on every post to maximize your reach and your engagement. I would use things like your location, your part of the country, etc. What you're doing, so eye care, opticians, optometrists, and also relevance to the current time. So again, hashtag coronavirus, hashtag COVID-19, hashtag stay home. These kind of things that make your posts get seen by more people. Instagram, I think, works really well as a fashion platform for eyewear particularly. And I would say, if you're going to do Instagram, please really do it well. Badly run Instagram pages just don't work. They don't look good. So I think if you're going to invest time in it, really do it properly. Instagram is owned by Facebook, so integration is very, very straightforward. You can share what you do on Instagram through Facebook at the click of a button, but it doesn't work well with Twitter. And Twitter doesn't display the photo that you use on Instagram, all you get is the text and a link through to Instagram. So it's not a good move to sync it. It may save time, but you won't get anywhere near the level of engagement you would by doing it as a native platform within Twitter. Instagram has a slightly younger audience than Facebook. They're a bit more social savvy, and perhaps your language should probably take that into account, and use the language of Instagram is slightly different for everyday lingo. Instagram has a feature called Stories, as does Facebook. As I say, they're both owned by the same people. You can copy your Instagram story onto Facebook. This is something that disappears after 24 hours, but it appears right at the top of the feed, and it's a great way to showcase content. People click through their stories. They're short clips of 15 seconds on videos, and you can be really, really creative with it. You can add little bits of captioning, that kind of thing. What I found really useful throughout lockdown is people's creativity with stories, and particularly live stories. So I was involved in a cook-along live on Saturday night with a chef and a vodka maker, and they paired up to do a social isolation supper club. And half of the screen was the chef, half of the screen was the vodka maker, and it all came together and people cooked along. It was brilliant. Maybe that's something you could do with Instagram. If you're confident in front of a camera, why not stage one of your events as a live through Instagram? Just thinking off the top of my head, something like if you were to have an open day for a sunglasses brand, for example, why not still do that, but just do it through live, so that you're on one half and then they're showing their glasses off on the second half of the screen. That could work really, really well. I've seen other examples of people doing things like book clubs and all that kind of stuff on Instagram. Really, really innovative uses of platforms. And quizzes are very, very popular as well. So some good ideas there, hopefully. These are some examples through Instagram. Now, seeing Opticians, I really like their Instagram feed. These guys get it. They're very good at it. They use the right language. They know their audience well. And I love this image. I thought that really conveyed the story of what everyone was going through right at that time of lockdown. It's a stark image to show all the frames off the shelves. I really like that. And lots of other people did as well. 121 likes, so I know that's a good return for seen. So if you're looking for some accounts to follow as inspiration, I would recommend these guys. I think they're excellent. Bateman Opticians, this is another example of that "we are here" message. It's popular across all social media sites. And I think people can relate to that image well. It's a good, clear message, and that you can see the way they've phrased it. All the information that you need is there: the phone number, the email address, the current policy, and that they're still open, and they're here for you with a hashtag there. And this one is an example of competition, which is a great way to get some interaction throughout this period. Nice, striking image of a colourful frame, encouraging people to get involved and design their own pair of specs, which is a really nice idea. I think that's something that's gone across a lot of independent practices through a particular agency. So that was a good idea. Other platforms, briefly, across social media, we mentioned LinkedIn. That's something to use, I think, from a personal profile rather than a practice page. You get a lot more interaction. You can just communicate with people better through a personal page on LinkedIn. YouTube tutorials are a really great way to engage people. They can take a lot of planning. They can be time consuming. I would argue that we've now got more time on our hands than normal. If you're going to do it, now's not a bad time to do it. So have a think about a few things that perhaps you could film on YouTube and then share across your other social platforms. You may or you may not be aware of something called TikTok. It's enormous. It's expanding at an exponential rate. It's not just silly dance routines. There are other things on there as well, but I quite like this idea of, if you've got the right kind of people in your team, show them having a little bit of fun at home. Although we're being serious, although we are still working and we're in a very difficult time, let's try and put a smile on people's faces. And people like to see people dancing stupidly. So have a look at TikTok, see if you think it's for you. It may well not be, but if it is, explore it. On a similar theme, Snapchat, it's been around for a couple of years now. It's extremely popular with the younger crowd. Is there a need for you to be on there? Do the audience want to hear from brands, particularly opticians and optometrists? I would say not, but maybe just consider it, particularly, maybe as an advertising forum in the future if you're looking to engage a younger audience. And also WhatsApp for business. We shouldn't ignore WhatsApp as a social media platform. And again, it's owned by Facebook, and it can integrate very effectively into your Facebook Messenger quickly and easily. People can get in touch with you as well. So that's something to look at, to integrate your WhatsApp with your Facebook inboxes. Now, golden rules of social media. I just want to recap a few things, really. Let's try and show some personality throughout this, but we do need to be professional at all times. We need people to have confidence in us. They need to be calm when we're dealing with them, but also they want to know us as people. And I think now's a really good time to resonate with people, and they can share our experiences. They know how we're feeling. We're all going through this together. So to really show some personality in your posts, be calm, be reassuring, be understanding. This is a difficult time for everybody, and we need to be there for them. There's an awful lot of negativity around in the media, particularly at the moment. Understandably so. We turn on the TV, we hear these horror stories of numbers dying each day. It's horrible, but there is a place for some positivity as well. People are searching for those feel-good stories. So if you're doing something in your community to help the cause, social media is a great place to shout about it. People will want to read it, they'll want to see it, they'll want to share it as well. And do remember that social media is a conversation, it's not a broadcast. So it's not just a one-way street. Get involved in conversations, talk to people, ask them questions, treat it as a coffee shop, a pub, an online version of those, and get involved in talking to people. Do focus on storytelling, not selling. I say it every time. People don't want to see sales messages, particularly not at the moment. They want to hear stories of people doing good. And if you can give them that, then that's going to be a bonus. And as I always say, if you wouldn't say it to a stranger in a pub, don't say it on social media. Just be mindful of the fact that everything you type on social media can be shared very, very quickly and easily. So just be careful. If you're not careful and it does go wrong, what do you do? Well, if you follow the golden rules, hopefully it doesn't go wrong, but sometimes it does, and we all make mistakes. The best thing to do is not ignore it. Act on it quickly, and try and take it offline as much as possible. So most of these sites have direct messaging or inboxes where you can respond privately, and I would try to do that at all times. There's nothing worse than a public spat on Facebook or Twitter. It just looks awful. It reflects poorly on you as a business and can do a lot of damage. So always try to nip it in the bud, take it offline and deal with it there and then. If you make a little mistake on a Facebook or an Instagram post, click on the 3 dots on the right hand corner and you can edit those posts. Just be careful, but with Twitter, you can't edit a post. So the best way, if there's a problem on there, is to just delete it and repost without the error. So that's what I recommend for those. Copyright on pictures is always something to bear in mind. Don't get stung on that. There are agencies out there that will gladly send you a letter charging you £1,000 for using one of their photos without permission. So whatever you do, don't go on Google Images and pick the first one on the screen. That's schoolboy error number 1. There are some image free sites out there which you can use, copyright free images, sorry. And one I use is called Unsplash. That's definitely worth a look. Some really high quality images on there. You can sign up there for a free account as well. A few more tips and tricks for you for social. In normal circumstances, I would recommend scheduling a little bit of content in advance. I use a program called Hootsuite. If you know you've got things coming up, you can program this automatically so that tweets and messages will appear at a time you decide. So if you want something going out in 3 weeks, you can do it this afternoon and specify it to go out in 3 weeks' time, and you don't need to then worry about it. It gets done for you. All I'd say is now I think we just need to be a little bit careful. We don't know what the situation is. It's evolving very quickly. So I would rather do things live, if you like, right now than scheduling, just because we're subject to change so much. We've mentioned that posts need graphics and images to perform to their full potential. If you need a quick graphic to go with a picture, use a site called Canva. It's free to use. Lots of templates on there for you to have a play with. very easy to use, and you can create some good looking graphics very, very quickly. Remember to tag people in your posts and pictures. Just put a little @ sign in front of them and then their handle on that platform. And that's a great way of getting content shared. Use the free analytics sites, such as Page Insights on Facebook, Twitter Analytics, etc. There's some good information on there which can help you to determine what works well and what works perhaps not so well on your posts. Don't get obsessed about trying to go viral. I've found that the more you try, the harder it is. Just be organic, just focus on good quality content, and if people like it, it will get shared. Really good time at the moment to ask for reviews, and that third-party endorsement is particularly powerful. And with people having a bit more time on their hands, now is a good opportunity to ask them just to leave a little review on Google or Facebook or whatever platform you're using, just so that people can see how good you are. There's a little useful guide here. This has been put together by a company called Avocado Social, I believe. I stumbled across this the other day and I thought there was some good content in there. So have a look through that. That's got some further tips and tricks for you to use in your social campaigns. Okay, so digital marketing is going to be the next section, but I think we'll just hold it there for a sec just to see if there have been any more questions on any other social media platforms. Neil.
Yes, done a few. I think actually you covered them through the presentation in the main, but just in case. So dealing with negative comments, which you just covered there about covering them over.
Yeah, always try and take it private if possible. There's bound to be the odd one, but just try and deal with it away from that public-facing interface, if you like, on all these platforms.
And again, I think you covered it really. You mentioned about using Hootsuite for multiple and timed posts as a recommendation.
I do use it. I'm not going to sit here and say it's the best thing to do, because I think I would always argue that live posting is more effective, but it's a good way of saving a few hours here and there. But nothing is quite the substitute for posting as it happens. What I use Hootsuite for is to create like a skeleton of posts across a month. So I'll go through a calendar for a client and I'll say, okay, we've got this on Wednesday, we've got this next Tuesday. We can put out a few posts that we know are going to be happening throughout that month. That gives us a framework to work from. And then there's the live stuff just embellishes that and then tells the real behind the scenes stuff as we go along. But just, as I say, do be mindful of scheduling too much right now, because we don't know what's going to be happening in 3-4 weeks' time. We're very much living in the here and now at the minute. The other thing to mention with Hootsuite, sorry to go on, but Hootsuite's great for Twitter. It's not so great for Facebook and Instagram. Facebook has its own scheduling tool within it. If you go into a section of Facebook called Publishing Tools, that allows you to schedule directly in Facebook, which is the best way of doing it, because Facebook actually penalizes posts that have been scheduled using Hootsuite. They don't like third-party apps for scheduled content, and they have a system built into their algorithm, which means that fewer of your likes will see your post if it has been scheduled within Hootsuite. So just bear that in mind. Use Hootsuite for Twitter, great, no problem at all. But steer clear of it for Facebook and Instagram if at all possible.
Superb. And I think finally on this one, we've got some others which I think we can cover at the end. But finally, is there a way of actually making GIFs open up automatically in a post rather than the viewer having to click on them?
Depends on the platform, I believe. I think Twitter.
It was mentioned in the question.
Sorry, Facebook, did you say?
Facebook and Twitter, it was mentioned in the question.
Yeah, I think Facebook, no. I think Twitter, I'm pretty sure they play automatically on Twitter, depending on what device you're using. I think on a phone on Twitter, they play automatically, but I'd have to just double check. It's caught me on the hop slightly, that one, but I think they play automatically on Twitter using a phone.
Perfect. And we'll cover the rest at the end then, okay?
Okay, apologies if I'm wrong on that. That's I just have to think off the top of my head, but I'm pretty sure it is. Okay, digital marketing is the final section of this. And we're talking about websites here, predominantly. That's your shop window. And people need to see your position on COVID-19 clearly and concisely on your homepage. As soon as they click on your site, they want to see, are you open? If you are open, what are you doing? And how can you help them? So make that front and center of your homepage. Just create a little pop-up window which explains exactly where you are right now. Your website always needs to reflect your brand and your culture. So if you have a set of brand guidelines, for example, as a practice, then make sure your website reflects that as well. Make it as easy to use as possible. Nothing is worse than clicking on a website and not being able to find where you want to go. So please try and make them as simple to use as possible. Now's a good time to be using your website more. I think people are searching more online. If they can't get to you in person, they'll pay you a visit online. So is it an opportunity to perhaps increase the range of goods that you're selling on there? Is there a section now that you could have for sunglasses, for example, where people can quickly and easily buy a new pair of sunglasses for the summer? So have a look at that. Obviously, websites feed off new content. That's the way Google operates. So we need to try to keep feeding it. As I said previously, we've got more time on our hands now. I know we're still busy, but we do have more time. So perhaps now is the time to invest in some new blogs, some new content, some new videos, etc. Keep your website updated throughout this next 4 or 5 week period, and you'll feel the benefits for the next few months, because that's the way the Google algorithms work as well. And obviously, do make sure your website is optimized for use on a mobile phone. That's how we now use almost every website. And I think stats show that the laptops and desktops are way behind now, particularly on social, for the way people access these platforms. Emails, very useful way of staying in touch with our customers still. Always a good idea to send out the odd email newsletter and campaign update just to stay in touch. Just remind them that you're still there for them. Try and personalize your emails. Most of these systems that send out multiple emails now give you the option to add in a first name, for example, through your database. To do that, I think it's a little trick that gets people to feel really valued. Try and, again, with emails, language is important, particularly right now. So let's be clear, let's be concise, and let's be reassuring. Let's show them that we're confident that we can withstand this current situation. We're going to be there for them now, and we're going to be there for them after it ends. So language vital just on email, just as it is with social as well. Email's always useful to segment your audiences. Not everybody needs to see the same kind of content, so bear that in mind. Perhaps you could do a contact lens newsletter to your contact lens patient, and maybe you've got another section of your audience that might be interested in sunglasses more so than others. So shape your content according to your audience. I use Campaign Monitor for most of my email work. MailChimp is a very similar alternative. If you're not using any of these platforms, then perhaps check them out. They're good value, and there's a lot of good analytics tools on there as well, which you can use to track open rates and click-throughs, that kind of thing. As always, just be aware of the implications of the GDPR legislation that came in. Make sure you're compliant with that. And finally, just text messaging as well. Really useful way to communicate exactly what's happening now. Might be worth sending out a text if you have the software to do so, just to confirm to people that you are still available for emergency appointments only, or whatever your situation is. And ways to get in touch, give them if you've got an emergency email address set up or anything like that, just communicate that to them via a text. Also, if you've got a lot of contact lens patients, perhaps you could issue monthly reminders through text messaging, just so that there's another prod to people to say, we're here for you. If you need us, just drop us a line. Okay, so any further questions at all?
Okay, Dan, we have a few just on sort of tagging on Facebook. There was a question, actually quite an interesting one, over TikTok. Apparently it's being sort of banned by the US government for certain areas. I think the concern from the question was, if we were to post something on TikTok, might it look or reflect negatively on us by using it?
Tricky one. It's an emerging platform, isn't it? There are some suggestions that China are using it to spy on various accounts, etc. How much of that is a conspiracy? To be honest, it's early days. the content I've seen on there is being very well received. I think it's possibly worth just holding off for now and letting other people use it first, and perhaps being prudent and being a later adopter of TikTok might be worth it. I get the risk with it. I do understand that. I would just, rather than posting on it, why not just open an account quickly, just to see it, just experience it, get a feel for it, and then as and when you feel confident that it's the right platform for you and you're confident that it's safe, at that point perhaps use it then. But no harm in getting an account just now, I wouldn't have thought.
Good, thank you. Another one, is it best to put posts out on different platforms or have them all linked?
Yeah, different platforms act differently. So if you have the time, I would always recommend phrasing the posts differently depending on which platform you are on. What works well on Twitter may not work well on Instagram, for example. So if you have the time, try to do it natively in each platform to maximize the use of that platform. For example, with Instagram, we've said about all the hashtags. You need 12 hashtags, ideally, on an Instagram post. You don't on Facebook, you don't on LinkedIn. So you do an Instagram post in Instagram, you then go onto Facebook and you do a different one. You do a different version on Twitter, different version on LinkedIn, etc. I appreciate that takes time, but you will get better results for doing so. So there's one more part to that question. Yeah. What was it?
No, it was very much LinkedIn. It was, is it good to put them in on different platforms? Should they be or not? So I think we've answered that. Yeah. And is Google AdWords still a thing? Oh, sorry.
It is very much a thing. I will say at this point, I have never used it. It's not what we do. That's not something that our company offers. So I would really be very reticent about talking about anything about Google AdWords, because I know probably as much as anybody else in the room right now. It's just not what we do, but it's definitely a thing. That's about all I know.
So that's quite fair enough. So we're kind of running out of time here, but as I said at the beginning, we will actually post and answer the questions that we haven't managed to answer here live and make those available to you. I also mentioned that a recording of this we'll put on a YouTube channel. Dan has also put up there his email address on the bottom of the screen and is very happy to field questions directly.
If anybody does have a question that they perhaps didn't want to share with the rest of the audience, then do just drop me a line, and I'm happy to answer any queries that you may have.
Perfect. So it really just remains for me to thank Dan Owens for tonight's presentation. Thank you very much. Very informative. I think uncovered some new stuff, as well as refreshing some stuff which maybe has been forgotten. I hope it's been useful. I genuinely hope that the concept